Welcome Jason Eller to the stage!
I'm going to be working on Well, this is the largest group I've ever spoken to, so that's always fun. It's usually like 5. So, something interesting about me. Have any of you ever heard this story about how I met my wife?
Tell us!
Oh, but I will. That's my goal here. So, how many of you have worked the youth garage sale? So, did you ever know that relationships can bloom during the garage sale season? Oh my goodness, crazy, right? Well, there was one time I was staffing, and I stuck around after, because a group of us stayed and we were just talking about life, answering questions, getting to know each other. And I keep looking across the circle. I'm like, who is this girl? I swear I've seen her before. And I'm sitting there thinking. And then I walked up to her after, and it hit me. And I'm like, you're that Emily! And she's just like, who the crap is this? Like, what the heck? And lo and behold, she had befriended me on Facebook because I always put very deep and spiritual things on there. And she followed me, and then we got married. It was great. That's the story. But I like that story. I think it's
You call it an internet relationship?
Say what?
It would be like an internet relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea. Oh, I do, somewhere. Oh, here we go. I was freaking out. Okay. But I'm going to pray before I start talking. Just real quick, and then we'll get started. Dear Lord, thank you so much for tonight and just the opportunity to speak on James, Lord. I just ask that your words would come from my lips and let them not be my own. Lord, just speak to these students and just teach them about this book and just on what I am focusing on in this book. And thank you for Dave and everything that he does, and just this youth group and just how it's always such a lively place. In your name, amen. All right. So, amen. That was good, Zoe. But, so does anyone know who the author is of this book? Anyone got a guess? Oh,
James.
good job. But which James?
The brother of Jesus.
Oh, you're smart. But yes, that is James, the brother of Jesus, wrote this book. That is the large consensus. More people agree with that. There's things that people can disagree with, but that doesn't really matter because that's who wrote it. But and then actually I'll go on those. But some of the things are the fact that he died in AD 65, and everyone thinks that he's responding to Paul's epistles and responding to things that Paul wrote about. But in reality, he could just be writing about things that were going on in his church, obviously. And there's just a lot of similarities between the two and just an opposite view. But and then the Greek was really good, and he never left Palestine. So they think that is another reason it might not have been him. But at the end of the day, everybody thinks that it is him because he's the most qualified, which is great. Because he was the leader of the church in Jerusalem. And it was written in the mid-40s AD. So the reason that we know that is that his execution was in AD 62. And there was also the Apostolic Council in Jerusalem. And if it was written after that, they would have made note of that in the book. And that was in AD 48 or 49, somewhere in there. And now the theme is about living out one's faith and being a doer and not a hearer, or not just a hearer of the word. And I know I've heard that a lot of you really like this book. This book holds a special place in my own life because this was the book that was being taught on when I actually became a Christian. And it was actually talking about being a doer and not just a hearer, and not just looking into the mirror and forgetting who you are. So that's why I chose this book. And the context is the fact that the people were Jewish because it says it in verse 1:1 about the 12 tribes of Israel in the dispersion. Okay. Now I'm going to try and summarize the entire book for you. It's five chapters, so it's actually really short, and you guys should definitely read it at some point. It starts out with Paul's greeting, in obviously verse 1, and the testing of faith is talked about after that. And different things that are talked about are having joy in trials, and then wisdom from God for the trials that we are going through. And then the place of the rich and the poor before God, which is actually verse 1, 9 to 11.
I'm really sorry for doing that. I needed to confirm that we had sound for a video later.
I
That's
like
to renew
this.
everybody's attention span. Now focus right back in.
Yeah,
Okay?
this is all fun. But and then the reward for those who endure through trial is verses 1-12. And the process of temptation and how temptation works. Who knows what temptation is? Somebody answer that for me. Define it. I don't want to. You right there. You are.
Temptation,
Yeah, it's temptation. I'm not sure.
something that entices you to do something.
Something that entices you to do something. I like that.
Okay.
That works. Snaps the bag. All right. Moving on to almost chapter 2. The next part of the book talks about hearing and doing the word. Yeah, that's weird. That's funny. But it's chapter 1, verse 19 to 27. It's talking about being a hearer, listening to the word and hearing it, but not just forgetting it. It's where it talks about the mirror, I believe, somewhere. And then being a doer of the word, not just hearing it and just letting it fall out of your mind. And then acting in light of judgment. Just knowing that judgment is real. And part of this was cut off, so I won't be able to talk to you about everything. But in chapter 2, verse 18 to 20, it talks about the response of a critic. And then it talks about Abraham and Rahab in 2:21 to 26, and just how they relate to the book. And then this is so much fun. I'm sorry that this is just so wonderfully entertaining. But and then there's the sin of dissension in the community, which is chapter 3:1 to 4:12. And it talks about taming the tongue, which is actually what we're talking about tonight. So when we get there, hopefully it'll be a little more fun. But and then the solution is that wisdom from above, which is chapter 3:13 to 18. Obviously, we want wisdom from God. But and then there's also warning against worldliness in chapter 4, 1 through 12. And then the sins of the wealthy, which is chapter 4:13, and then 2:5-12, which talks about boasting of tomorrow, acting like you know what's going to happen in life, which we really don't. And then there's the warning to the rich in chapter 5:1-6, which just talks about how you need to be careful what you do with your money, and if you just focus on money, that's not a good situation, because that's called greed. And then there's patience and suffering in chapter 5:7-12, which is obviously just talking about how we will all go through suffering in life, and just knowing that God is sovereign, God is in control, and being patient and knowing that He will bring healing to that pain. And then there's the prayer of faith in chapter 5, 13 to 18. And then the book ends in verse 19 to 20 of chapter 5. And I'm going to go into my actual talk now. It's going to be great. But we're talking about the tongue tonight. How many of you
Could we give him some claps for an outline?
I don't like doing outlines.
I can't stand them.
They're very hard.
That's why I clap.
And they're very fun. But so we're talking about taming the tongue. How many of you have heard a talk about taming the tongue? Anybody that went on the summer trip may have heard this, I think. That's what I was told. But I'm just going to read the verses, and then I will go back and go back through them.
Where are you going to be reading it so I can follow along?
Chapter 3.
James 3.
Everybody that wants it, bypass it. Pretty
Almost.
except
Super
for
close.
Dave.
Super close.
It's taking his time.
Well,
You're busy.
we're super close. Blaine is there now. Oh, you do? Or just in case. Pass that one. James 3.
All right. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing, my brothers. These things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. All right. So the first verse says, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. And I was going to make a joke here, and I'll just tell you, because I was thinking about myself in teaching. I'm like, I shouldn't be a teacher because I just don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But what that's trying to say is just, someone like Dave who teaches all the time, and any of us that teach, like when we're teaching about God, it's a big deal. Like we're held accountable for the words that come out of our mouths, and especially for teachers, people that are teaching all the time, like Dave, because he teaches a lot, and Jeff Dryden, and any pastor, or just if that's what you do, which you're all in high school, so I don't know if you teach on the Bible, but if that's what you want to do, there's a very big commitment there, and it's a great commitment to make. But just knowing that the words that we say, like we are held accountable for them as teachers. And I like the next verse in chapter 2, or verse 2, sorry.